Top 5 people who have slighted Deion Sanders.
Does this include today?
Well, look, yes, it does. And there's a bonus on this one at the end, so bear with me. Number 5, Ed Werder, ESPN's Ed Werder. Good guy. Love Ed. I've spent a lot of time with Ed. One of the friendliest and most. Here's the deal about Ed Werder. Ed Werder is one of the most trustworthy reporters in reporterdom. Like, he is. If Ed says it, he's done his work on it. Like, he's in no way controversial. There's nothing about Ed that screams controversy at all. At all. And he did make a tweet about Deion Sanders and stated some factual information about him, but Deion took it as sarcasm, I think, in the tweet. And so then after he covered the game, TCU and Colorado, and Ed never covers college football, but it was ESPN wanting to cover every angle of it. And Ed knows Deion from years and years and years of being one of the premier NFL reporters. He's in the press conference, and Deion Sanders is like, "You believe now, Ed? You believe now?" And Ed didn't really know what he was talking about.
Yeah, he goes, "In what?"
Yeah, in what? And so
because Ed's not that's not even top of mind. I kept the receipts and I get all right. There's one.
So there's Ed Werder. Number 4, Jay Norvell. As you know, this was very recent. This is today. Sunglasses Gate.
About 6 or 7 hours ago.
Yes, Jay Norvell said during his interview with ESPN that he takes off his hat and sunglasses because his mother told him to do that when he talks to adults, and that Deion has made. His little rah-rah speech to the guys after practice. Have you seen that on Twitter yet? The coaches have made rah-rah speeches about it. And now Jay Norvell is on that list of people who have disrespected Deion Sanders today.
Yeah, and going back to Edward, I think he handled that really well.
Yeah.
Like, he could have tried to make it a deal and fight back, but he just, I think it was pretty obvious what was happening there was not really Edward doing anything. But with Jay Norvell, it's very clear. He took the shot. He straight up took a shot at Deion's behavior as a man in some ways, right? If you're questioning how he dresses and the fact that he's a man and he, what you were told or what you learned, I think this one's legit. The Ed Werder one, not so much. This one, absolutely legit because it's out there and proof's in the pudding. Jay Norvell said it with his chest out. Like, he said it and wasn't planning on backing down whatsoever. So this game, that's the magic though of just the Deion energy is that what was just a Colorado State game, fun and notable for people out there, not really so much for anybody else, is now going to be a game that a lot more people pay attention to because of simply this exchange. So, like I said earlier, if you're a promoter, you would love it. This is promotions. This is what this is, and unintentionally or intentionally, they promoted this fight or this game in a much bigger way than it was originally intended to.
I'm going to do something if you don't mind. Only if, Garrett, you have it ready. Do you have the tweet from Norvell ready? The actual what he said? Did I send that to you?
We did that earlier.
This was something different. But okay, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. Number 3, Kendal Briles. And this was back when Shedeur was getting recruited a few years ago. Kendal was at Florida State. He's the offensive coordinator there, and apparently disrespected Shedeur there, and they decided that they weren't ever going to talk about that again until, I guess, they played Kendal Briles, but they were going to leave, and that they felt disrespected, and that was a big deal. I do wonder, I would love to hear the story from Kendall's side, which we never will.
No.
Never, ever, ever will, because it doesn't benefit Kendal to say anything. I just would like to know for my own edification.
If they beat them in Big 12 play next year or something, then maybe that would have opened the door for Kendal to say something, because they got one back. But yeah, since you lost and since you don't really have room to say anything.
There's nothing that they can say, but yeah, it was a perceived slight. And whether it's intentional, at least they took it as a slight. So Kendal Briles got on the list, and they used that as motivation to beat TCU. Although Kendal Briles' day against Colorado wasn't really all that bad, but it certainly didn't do Joe Gillespie any favors that they were so motivated to beat TCU because of KB.
Yeah, Joe Gillespie deserves more blame for that loss than Kendal Briles by a long shot, and Chandler Morris deserves more blame for that loss than Kendal Briles, in some ways as well. They were in the red zone, his offense, and threw a couple picks that were bad, and you lost by 3. Mm-hmm. So that was not his doing. I know it's just kind of tense right now, the whole situation surrounding all of it. And I think TCU, they're in a weird place where they're like, how good are we? We're not maybe as good as we expected and everything. But yeah, this one I'm gonna need some clarification on, because I'm not just going to go like, yeah, Kendal Briles totally did that, because I don't buy that he's just ignoring Shedeur Sanders for other than just he's one of 100 kids that are out there, and he's just, going about his business. So I don't know, not being there, I'm hesitant to just go full on that, this was the way that it was portrayed to be.
I could look. If you told me, if you gave me specific details of how someone is acting, I could be like, okay, well, yeah, that was rude. But if you just kind of talk about it in generalities, I'm like, well, is that how you perceived it, or was he just treating everybody the same way and didn't take special note? Number 2, Brent Venables. Remember Brent Venables, which I didn't understand, but they kind of, and I guess he was asked about it, but he was like, yeah, we didn't want to do it that way. And in response to Deion building out of the portal, this one was a little bit calmer, because Deion's not necessarily using this one as a chip on his shoulder for a specific game, because Colorado and Oklahoma would only play now in a bowl game ever. They're not going to be in the same conference again. Colorado is essentially taking Oklahoma's place, as they come, one of the schools taking Oklahoma's place as they leave the Big 12 and Colorado comes back in. But Brent Venables, also on the list for whenever Colorado and Oklahoma's paths do cross again.
Well, unlike Kendal Briles and unlike Ed Werder, I know Ed's written about Deion, talked about Deion, but not like it was portrayed. But, this one, Brent Venables mentioned him by name. Like, he flat out said, we're doing it differently than Deion. He said, let me pull up the exact quote. Okay, you want to talk about a coaching change, resetting the standards and what expectations are? I gave guys 12 months of grace. I was unlike Deion. I gave 12 months of grace to figure it out. So that one you can't really say he misunderstood that one. It's like, no, he mentioned you by name and mentioned that the way you're doing it's not the way that he's doing it. And I could see where you could perceive that as a slight, that he's also indicating that their way is the better way of doing it. So, that'll bear out over these next 10 weeks and beyond. But I can see where he was coming from with being a little miffed by Venables' comments.
And I think there might have been a comment from Rhule back in the summer, similar.
Get there.
Whoa.
A guy from Nebraska who coached at Baylor.
We'll get there. But Venables, here's the other thing about Venables that makes him look bad. Look, Deion took more players out of the portal, but who's your quarterback, Brent? It's not like you went full Dabo on this.
Well, it's not like you sat on your hands this offseason. A big part of what you did was go out and get a bunch of guys. Yeah.
You just got less. That's the only difference, is that you went to the fridge less.
Well, that's the question, is what's the threshold of it's okay to do 20 editions and run 20 guys off, but it's not okay to do 70. Is that what we're is 25 okay? Yeah. Is that under the threshold, or is 40 and above that's against all that is wholly of college football? And that's where I think, there's what standard are we talking about here? What's okay? Because if you're flipping 20 guys, I'm not saying Oklahoma specifically, but in general, if you're flipping 10 guys, I get it's one number's bigger than the other, but is it all that different really in the end, especially for a first-year guy? I don't think so.
No. Well, let me tell you something. After last year, Oklahoma probably should have flipped 70 guys.
Yeah. Look, and again,
Lincoln flipped them from them, and that's why they had to do some of it. But regardless,
if you're in Vegas at an all-you-can-eat buffet, because the guy at the other table goes and gets 4 ribeyes, it doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means he went and took advantage of the same deal that's available for you. So,
and if he's winning, it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's worked. If they were losing, then Deion wouldn't be saying anything. Or the conversation would be much different. But they're winning, and so that's the proof in the pudding that you need.
And number 1, guess who? Matt Rhule.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shocking.
Number 1, Matt Rhule, who this one. And this is the one that made me really want to do this list, because all these other 4 have been there's been something concrete, really, that you could point to. And Matt Rhule's are more figurative. And then the praying on the center of the field one is completely invented by Shedeur. That's in his own head. That's that Michael Jordan, I heard from this guy that this guy said that about me, and that works, it works. But yeah, Matt Rhule praying on the center of the field to disrespecting the Buffalo, irritating Shedeur and Deion. That one's new to me. That one was that's why it's number 1, because
they were praying on the logo.
It took a lot.
Go ahead.
No, then they just went out there and after the first half beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a legit explanation for why they were doing what they're doing, but, obviously Colorado saw it differently. I was looking forward to a game where they didn't have some, big sense of motivation, or some perceived slight, but then Jay Norvell just delivers it right on their front porch, which, I can't wait. If Colorado State goes out and stinks up the joint, then I'm really going to question it. And if I was a Colorado State fan, be kind of pissed of why he said what he said. If they go out there and they ball out, then be like, you know what? He had a feeling and he was like, you know what? No, we're going to push back, and I get that. But if they get smoked, then, I'd really question the logic in saying what he said. Other than, you know what? He doesn't care and he just wants to make a point because that's how he feels. But, also I think you need to add, or you could add, so there's another, Pat Narduzzi also questioned Deion's recruiting methods. So this list is just going to get longer and longer and longer. Yeah.
And look, we're going to throw in a bonus.
I'm glad you
said by doing this list.
Yeah, that's what Joe Klatt was talking about. What he thought was the over/under on wins. He goes, "Oh, I'm sure they'll use this." Here are